Our speaker this morning is our Associate Head of School, Dr. Rodríguez Vargas. In addition to working closely with Mr. Lehman and the senior leadership team, Dr. Rodríguez Vargas is a member of the World Languages Department and serves as an advisor. She is originally from New York City and has lived in various states across the country, teaching at both universities and independent schools for over 2 decades. Dr. Rodríguez Vargas lives on campus with her husband, Brian, and her daughter, Kayla, is a student at New York University. Her chapel talk today is a reflection on how we interpret our perceptions and the importance of seeking to understand. Dr. Rodríguez Vargas.
Good morning. Buenos dias. For today's chapel talk, I've been reflecting on how we interpret our perceptions and the importance of seeking to understand. Perception is described as the organization and identification of sensory information in order to understand something, the ability to hear, to see, or become aware of something through the senses. Perception, sensory, information, understanding, making sense of or assigning meaning to an experience. There have been various times in my life when I have had an experience that could have left me feeling awkward, confused, upset, or offended by what someone said or did. Like in the 9th grade, when my very curious teacher reached across my desk to touch my very curly hair and declared to the class in amazement, "You have no idea by looking at her that her hair is so soft." Or, "Wow, you speak English so well," when you're born and raised in the United States. One day, walking in the dining hall when the meal consisted of enchiladas, tacos, and refried beans, all delicious foods to be sure, I was told, "You must be tired of eating this food, having eaten it all your life." This is another assumption that I experienced as an adult by another adult at another school. Now, what do you think my response was? Raise your hand if you think my response was A. I smiled politely and proceeded to get my lunch while feeling somewhat awkward by the comment. All right. Raise your hand if you think my response was B. "You fool, don't you know not all Hispanic people grow up eating enchiladas, tacos, and refried beans?" Anybody think I said B? All right. Raise your hand if you think my response was C. I'm from New York and my parents are from Puerto Rico, so I grew up eating different foods like arroz con gandules and tostones. There are some common foods across Latin American countries like empanadas, but each country has its distinct cuisine and traditions. Anyone think I said C? All right. Well, A for me was really not an option, and B seriously crossed my mind, but I said C, because personally, I've always tried to use these and even more aggressive and unkind incidents steeped in ignorance or in inaccurate assumptions to be teachable moments, to build bridges instead of barriers, to try and make friends instead of foes, to inform and possibly reshape initial perceptions with greater clarity, more accurate information, and a different perspective. How about that? A teachable moment being an essential component in the life of a teacher. An opportunity to educate, communicate, and share rather than allowing a moment of potential awkwardness turn into a moment of anger or frustration. Now, education is seldom easy, but it is often transformative and deeply meaningful. Sometimes constantly educating others about personal things in particular can be tiresome, even for a teacher who believes education is their purpose. It can even become exhausting in a number of ways. And these days, with access to globalized information, so many well-traveled and educated among us, it would seem even more people would take the time to be sensitive thoughtful, to ask questions rather than assume, and become more knowledgeable about their neighbors. Starting with exploring, who are the people in your neighborhood? They're the people that you meet each day. Shout out to Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. One of the things I remember hearing at home and growing up with my parents is that everyone, regardless of age, economic status, race, religion, gender, political affiliation, or any other social identifier, should be treated with dignity and grace. In my home, being educated or educada had a great deal to do with character, values, manners, not just receiving a formal education. And rather than jump to conclusions and follow how I may be feeling in a particular situation, given my initial perceptions, I was taught that I should first seek to understand, to allow understanding and clarity to guide my words and actions. That hasn't always been easy, given some challenging situations along the way. However, rather than immediately defining an experience or becoming angry or frustrated and sitting in my emotions, which is naturally what happens to many of us in situations that are uncomfortable or feel offensive, I try hard to take a deep breath and seek to understand, as well as share or elevate understanding with others. This is not to say that offensive language or behavior is acceptable or excusable. I know all too well the discouraging and harmful ways these kinds of behaviors can impact people's lives. What I do suggest and urge us to consider in all situations is to first seek to understand, and when possible, to communicate your experiences in ways that help shape improved comprehension and interactions that foster more successful relationships. To really take the time to know who are the people in your neighborhood, to extend grace, suspend initial judgment, and consider the impact of your words and actions. Only then can light truly fill our communities, guide us in our journey, and help us nurture stronger bonds that are sustained and shaped by love, understanding, and respect. Thank you.